40 years before she starred in Follies at the Marquis Theatre, Bernadette Peters starred in a musical right across the street at the Lunt Fontaine that closed on opening night. We're doing 2 shows in this edition that closed on opening night at the Lunt Fontaine. That's pretty special. La Strada opened and closed on December 14th, 1969. The musical was based on the Fellini film of the same name, and earlier that decade, the Fellini film Nights of Cabiria had successfully turned into Sweet Charity.
La Strada had music and lyrics by Lionel Bart, who had a huge hit with Oliver. The show would star Bernadette Peters, recently singled out as a hot up-and-comer in Dames at Sea, off-Broadway. Now, director Alan Schneider was known for his direction of serious plays. He directed the original Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and the American premiere of Waiting for Godot. And
both of which I'm waiting to see turned into musicals, just saying. Right?
On the first day of rehearsal, he sat his cast down in a screening room to watch the original film, La Strada. Can you think about that today if there was a movie musical happening on Broadway, a musical based on a movie, and the first day they watched, like, we're going to watch the Wedding Singer movie before we start
rehearsal? That's the example I was thinking in my head. That's so weird.
you think we've done 10 concerts already together.
La Strada told the story of a circus strongman named Zampano and sweet, lonely Gelsomina, who became his assistant and concubine in the traveling circus. Zampano physically and verbally abused Gelsomina, but she loved him anyway. When Gelsomina finally made one friend, Mario, played by Larry Kurt, Zampano jealously killed him. In the end, Zampano deserted Gelsomina and left her to die on the road. Can you imagine the backers auditions for this? I can't. It was a beautiful film filled with tragedy, poetry, and melancholy, but tough material for a musical, even a serious one. The gloom of the story was relentless.
Producers, heartened by the success of darker musicals like West Side Story, Carnival, Man of La Mancha, and so forth, were really seeing how far they could push the content of a musical into what was previously known as opera territory. Peters, who was only 21 at the time, said that at first, upon reading the script, she had no idea what the story was about.
This is her saying this to the press, like, as a, promotion for the show.
I couldn't understand why Gelsomina said weird things. That's, I don't know. Then she watched the movie and understood the character more. She's not crazy, she's honest, untouched. She's people before they start covering up their emotions. She's pure.
I tried to make him do a Bernadette Peters impression.
I gotta get, like, Cola Scola in here. He does a great Bernadette, if you know him. Google him.
Well, if you get on tour any longer, I'm gonna get Cola Scola, I'll tell you. I'm just kidding. Also, I make Kevin do all the impressions, because I think I did an Andrew Lloyd Webber once. Don't look it up on YouTube, and it was pretty terrible. One surprising thing about La Strada was that while the score was originally written by Lionel Bart, he stayed in London. He didn't come over to America to be part of the rehearsal process. That's him staying in Europe.
I'm just curious who's going to play him next season on Downton Abbey.
Thus, on opening night, an insert in the playbill said, additional music and lyrics by Martin Charnin and Elliot Lawrence. Indeed, only 3 of the remaining songs were Bart's. As Stephen Susskind says, if they'd started rehearsals for Oliver with 12 songs, a copy of Dickens, and no Lionel Bart, I don't suppose they'd have gotten very far either. Stephen Perlman played Zampano, and Larry Kurt played Mario with his usual aplomb. One of my favorite moments in the show, if you can get your hands on this very scratchy bootleg from 1969, I don't condone bootlegs. There's a song called Your Musical that Bernadette Peters and Larry Kurt sing. It's not the one we'll be doing tonight, but it's amazing. It's also the only up-tempo in the show, but it's very exciting. It's an interesting show. It's a cool show. There we go.
The New York Times' Clyde Barnes wrote, "The book is weak. Music and lyrics by Lionel Bart are undistinguished to the point of muzak like oblivion. This really is music to forget to." Incidentally, from a slip in the program, I note that at this performance, there will be additional music and lyrics by Martin Charnin and Elliot Lawrence. You could tell where one part ended and the other part began. Indeed, Mr. Charnin and Elliot may very well be the first librettist and composer to succeed in actually copying Mr. Bart. Not exactly high praise, but Barnes' review in its entirety was actually mixed, and he did praise the story itself, as well as the acting and directing.
There'll be probably a couple drinking games as the night goes on, but one that Kevin and I really think would work is drink every time Clyde Barnes says something crotchety. So if that's the one you want to go by, then start right now. There you go. The Los Angeles Times and several of the other reviews were worse. Sandra Schmidt, critic of the LA Times, said, "The show moves like slow death." I don't know where you go from there, so that's The scenery by Ming-Cho Lee was colorful, dusty, atmospheric, and fluidly changing throughout the show, thanks to a revolving stage, one of the first ones on Broadway. Consensus was that it conjured the theatricality of a traveling circus in Italy very well. There was also choreography by Alvin Ailey in his first and only Broadway credit.
That is a trivia nugget right there. You're gonna be at a bar sometime, and that's gonna be a question.
Alvin Ailey choreographed the Strada is gonna be a question.
Yeah, like what is the one? I don't know, like Marie's Crisis or something, but it'll be on a trivia.
You're welcome.
The creators were trying to do what the writers of later shows like Curly did, which is where they took source material that worked and just injected songs into it, the existing material. And in this case, a look at what would have made the show special on stage was clearly needed. Charles K. Peck, who wrote the book and also produced, told the press that the show was a play with music and made sure to declare that La Strada was a Brechtian musicalization of the original film rather than a rewrite of it.
Kevin and I are obsessed with this because it's like box office opens Tomwa.
Tomwa.
Does anyone use that?
Like if that abbreviation, I've never seen that on Twitter in the 140 characters. I would not know what that means.
Tomwa, I got it. Of course, 1969 was a very different time where musicals based on movies intentionally ignored the movie in order to create something distinctive. This was the time when the musical of The Apartment was titled Promises, Promises, and not The Apartment, the musical. So, the paint-by-numbers approach to adapting a popular property was the exception, not the norm as it is today. And as noted, director Schneider even went as far as to show the movie on the first day. So maybe he was like ahead of his time a little bit, in a weird way. A little bit, I don't know.
A feature in the Times chronicled the first day of rehearsal and said, Miss Peters, who was discovered last year in Dames at Sea, breezed into the screening room a few minutes after the movie had started and sat in the back row next to her director. Wearing a purple pantsuit, red leather pumps, and apricot-tinted glasses, her long blonde hair both piled high and cascading to her shoulders, she snapped her chewing gum, laughed, and clapped happily as she watched the movie.
Don't you feel like she's here? I just had this like, oh my god.
I was so fascinated by that. Like, I just want to know everything about Bernadette Peters. That's amazing.
Yeah. The Strada B had her dreams dashed when La Strada closed after a single performance. It lost, are you ready for this? $650,000. Crazy, crazy. Barnes Review had said, in a different show, the bird-like and croaky Bernadette Peters would have become a star overnight. But in any case, I think she'll soon be back.
Indeed. As this may be a surprise, but she did come back to Broadway after this. 2 years later, and she was playing Hildy in a revival of On the Town that never quite took off. And then 3 years later, she returned in Mac and Mabel. While the beginning of Peters' career was beset by disappointing runs, it was clear to audiences that she was a star.
Some part of me wonders, of course, if Bernadette Peters, because her dressing room at the Marquis was like right across the street, she ever like looked out the window at the La Fontaine and like thought about clicking heels on steel and cement and all that. You can also drink every time I make a Follies reference, because I have like a couple I'm planning on getting in. So this is what I think that would have looked like.
The opening number of La Strada, Siegel's Starfish Pebble, was a solo turn for Peters. The song found her grasping for something just out of reach. Here to sing that song, the great Kacie Sheik.
Starfish home.